all eyes on us right here. Hey everybody, Matthew Olmican here for the Old Plain Partnership for Integrated Conservation, and we're out here in Marathon County, but more specifically in the Old Plain watershed. And we're visiting one of our EPPIC farmers' fields where he had a winter wheat field followed by a cover crop seeding on, and that he no-tilled corn silage into. So let's dig into it a little bit further. If this field looks familiar, you would be right. This is a field that I did cover crop biomass tests on where we showed nutrient sequestering, and it was a winter wheat field that we airflowed a cover crop mix that had two different approaches. The first approach was immediate growth with summer annuals, and then also to have winter hardy species in there that would fire back through in the springtime. And guess what? It's springtime, and look at all that cheddar. The reason that we wanted to have that multi-stage process was I wanted to have immediate growth with the summer annuals. So like it was spring peas, and there was some trophy rape in there, and also some crimson clover. So I wanted something that was growing immediate and that it was also going to decay right away. So it was going to do a discharge of nutrients, right? And then we also wanted to, importantly, have something that was going to fire back through in the spring to keep this ground active and to keep it stimulated, which we can see that with the 7-top, with the winter wheat, and with that clover. But man, just a wild scene. You can see how tall these plants are too. Just really, really kind of neat. Not only do we have the ground covered, but this also served as a great vector to no-till into. So if we pan over to that, thank you, Colton. That's right. The farmer planted silage corn right into this thing. So somebody would be looking at this and saying like, oh my God, look at this mess. But this guy was like, hell yeah, I'll plant into that. So we can see that the species that we have out here is we have actually the volunteer winter wheat that came through, and that stuff is looking great. And then if we spread this apart on here, this is some medium red clover that we had in this. We had two different clovers. We had crimson clover and we had medium red clover. And you can see that's some more medium red right there. And the big one, the one that's catching everybody's eye. This guy is 7-top turnip. So Colton and I are out here. He's running the camera right now. Say hi, Colton. Hi. He's like, you know, I think they call it 7-top because of the 7 rings on top. And I laughed and I said, I have no idea why they call it, but we actually counted about 20 of these plants, and it's been consistent, every single one of them. There's 7 collars or 7 little rings on top of this base of this tuber. So if that's why it's called 7-top, I'm not sure, but until somebody disproves that, that's why they call it 7-top. It's a brassica, Matt. Why is that prolific and why is that growing through? Well, this has been a very winter hardy brassica species that we started playing around with about 4 or 5 years ago. And every year it comes firing right back through. Even to the point where it looks like it's dead in March, this stuff will pound right through. But it also puts out a really impressive root system underneath. Now, if you've been tracking content that I've put out in the past, 7-top is a very adaptable plant. It puts out different tuber types. And if it's in loose soil with a lot of fertility, it will take on this very distinct tuber shape and then throw out very high gauge roots and fibrous roots off to the side. If it was a short bulb with a lot of fibrous roots, that would be compaction. Or if it had a very narrow carrot, that also would show compaction. Or if it was a lot of top loose soil and deep compaction, then it would be you get the point. Either way, so if you wanted to smell this at home, yeah, that's right. It smells like summertime at the lake. It's got a very pleasant smell. And like I said before, the other thing that I was hearing when we first came out here was the electrical hum of insects. And those insects specifically have been honeybees. There's one! Which makes this really cool. So not only do we have optimal nutrient sequestering right now because the farmer is going to come through here and this is going to get herbicidally terminated so these plants can break down and release those nutrients. And because we have a thick layer of brassicas and we have a little bit of clover and we have a decent amount of this winter wheat, the carbon to nitrogen ratio is going to be in the sweet spot between that 12 to 1, 15 to 1. So we're going to have not only an immediate release of nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but it's going to be gradual. It's going to carry all the way through springtime, deep into summer. And it's going to be manageable residue. So not only is that a perk, we've also created a vector to make this really easy to plant into. So you can see right here, it is just all aggregates and it's all roots from the top all the way down. So we can see that we've been getting into some really dry spells here in Marathon County. So even in this thick canopy, we do have dry soil at the top, but you can see that the moisture is very consistent all the way down, but not to the point where this is saturated, because somebody would have said like, oh my gosh, this ground is probably going to be just soaking wet. All those plants just hold on to moisture. It's just going to be mucky. We're going to have to work this. That's not the case. You can see how mellow and dry that is. And look at that. When I pick this up, that's a rock. You pick this up and it all just crumbles at your fingertips. So that's also another plus, that we created a very mellow piece of ground that's very workable and easy for minimum till and no till application. And then the other trifecta is that we're actually doing a huge benefit, because the biggest challenge, especially when we have a really prolonged winter like we had, once the pollinators start stirring up, they really got to start finding flowers. And you really don't start seeing a heck of a lot of flowers around the countryside other than dandelions and then whatever's in the woods. But right here, between this field and the other field that's down that way, you can see it's just a sea of flowers. And that would explain why we're just hearing and seeing a lot of these honeybees floating around. So there you go. The farmer is helping his agronomics, helping the watershed by reducing runoff and nutrient discharge, and helping the wildlife, more specifically the insect type. Anyway, that's all I wanted to share. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what we're doing here, why don't you hit the little like button there down at the bottom, share this with your internet friends, and we'll catch you next time.